Should you get the Tamron 20-75 for an APS-C Sony body like the 6000, 6300, or 6500? Stay tuned to find out. Hey, if you don't know me already, I go by That One Camera Guy. I do tutorials, guides, and reviews on Sony mirrorless equipment and gear. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and that bell notification so you stay up to date with the latest content. First of all, I want to let you know this is a talking head video. I'll be showing lenses and just kind of holding them up and going over my opinion and some experience and recommendations if you're an APS-C shooter and whether or not you should get the Tamron 20-75. I'll also be recommending other lens choices for you because, well, obviously I do have some other lenses that I can talk about as well in this particular video, but it's all primarily talking head and just giving personal experience on what you might want to consider doing. The elephant in the room right now is that there is a potential issue with the Tamron 20-75, so I want to go ahead and address that right now. Right now, it's really hard to get the lens already, and there is issues with autofocus, especially in photos and in video. Jason Vong also mentioned that he's having issues with video autofocus, and there's others in the previous video I released, which you can check out somewhere over here, and folks had posted down in the comments some of their experience and some issues, not just with the Tamron lens in particular, but just in other situations as well. Some have even had issues with Sony lenses and even adapters and adapting lenses as well. So I do appreciate all the feedback you guys always put into the comments, and that really helps fuel the conversation and helps with just understanding what's going on with the equipment right now. But it looks like it's not just completely isolated to me. It looks like there's some other issues going on, and hopefully Tamron can address the situation. I do want to point out as well that I did have issues not only with the a7 III, but with the a6500. It did have some focusing issues when I was trying to take photos with it when I was testing it out. So it's just not isolated to the Sony a7 III for the most part. So I'm still using the lens a little bit more. I like I said, I'm just shooting with it more and more with different cameras and just testing it out just to get a feel for the actual lens combo. But let's go ahead and continue with the rest of the conversation. So you are deciding right now, should you get the Tamron 20-75 for your APS-C body? Now, it's going to depend on your actual camera model. I would highly recommend if you're using the 6500, for example, you're going to get the most out of your Tamron 20-75 for a couple of reasons. One, you got the built-in stabilization that's going to help you with your photos and your video because this lens is fast in terms of just aperture, right? It's a bit wider at f2.8. You can really get that benefit of a shallow depth of field or better control of your depth of field and better low light performance, especially with handheld video work. It is fairly light. So if you're using a combination of this with the 6500 and this lens, I would probably recommend it for videographers. The autofocus is pretty smooth as long as you sort of know how to set your settings on your camera. You can get some pretty good smooth focusing between one subject to another. I did find it to be pretty good. I didn't have any major issues with that. Again, if hopefully there's no focus issues with the Tamron lens, it looks pretty good. Now, if you're using it with a non-IBIS based camera like the 6000 or 6300, you can still get a lot of benefit out of it. It's still a fast lens at f2.8. You can increase your shutter speed a little bit more if you need to. And photo-wise, you still get all the benefits. Again, it is a full-frame lens, so your effective reach is going to be around 42 millimeters all the way up to 112 millimeters on this particular lens from the Tamron 28-75. But I would say the biggest benefit would be for the 6500 users. And if you are a 6500 users, I think the Tamron is a great choice to go with. Okay, now what if you're debating between two lens choices right now? Let's say you're looking for that one lens that you can just use and take with you, travel, shoot, or whatever. So is the Tamron 20-75 a good choice? Okay, so this is all personal preference. The Tamron 20-75 in my hands and my usage isn't a very heavy lens compared to something like a 24-70. It's fairly light in my opinion. And you put it onto the body, it is going to look a little bit kind of ridiculous. It's a little bit big, but not front heavy in the sense that it's going to tip over. I don't really get that vibe. It's still secure. It's still light. It's still small, still pocketable. But it starts getting to that point where you're carrying it over your shoulder, you're carrying it with you, you start getting noticed. That's the issue with this particular lens. I still think it's okay. I still don't think it's a major problem or a major drawback in that regards. But the other comparison is this. It's the Sony 16-70 f4 for APS-C. So if you take a look at the sizing, the Sony is definitely smaller when it's retracted. Now, if you zoom it in, it gets a little bit longer, and we're starting to look around the same length, but it's still lighter, still compact when it's retract, less noticeable. And when you pair it up with your APS-C body, it's a really great combination in my opinion. Fairly sharp lens, and you're going to go from 24 to 105 effective. So it's a 24-105 f4 effective focal length reach with this lens combination. So, all right, so we're at that point right now. If you're using the a6000 and you're using the 6300, this is a pretty good choice. You got built-in stabilization into the actual lens, so if you're doing video and photos, you can take advantage of stabilization. If you're using the 6500, it's still a good combination, but since it has stabilization, you have a little more option. I wouldn't necessarily say get this one if you're using the 6500. I would look at other choices. But you are going to lose that stop of light from f2.8 to f4 with this particular lens setup, but you lose the versatility in size. So it's a tough choice. Okay, so what would I do? All right. Here's what I would do in the case. If you really want something compact, like the 16-70, my recommendation is to throw in a prime lens. Sigma's got some really good choices right now. You've got the Sigma 30mm f1.4. They've also got the Sigma 16mm f1.4. So that way, if you take this for travel and you throw in a lens like this one, I know it's going to increase your bag size a little bit, but you got two lenses, one for general shooting and then one for indoor shooting. I think you're set. I think you've got a really good setup here as far as size and weight within these two lenses. If you take this one, if you imagine, this could be a good just one lens. You just take this one lens, that's it. Now, if you're traveling and you want to stay light, it might not be your best choice. If you're just shooting around town or an event or something like that, this isn't bad. I think this is a good choice to go with. As far as versatility, again, just one lens, do it all. It can shoot in some low light conditions, obviously not extreme low light conditions, but I wouldn't be shy to take this indoors and shoot with it at f2.8. Let's talk about price consideration though. This thing retails, if you're gonna buy it retail, it's $1,000. Sometimes on sale, you can get it for $900 or so, but it is a very expensive kit. If you're gonna look at getting this Sigma 30 1.4, I've seen this go for about $300, maybe $350. So if you're gonna pair these two up, you're looking, I would say maybe around $1,300 for this combination, maybe even $1,400 for this combination. So it is expensive. If you just go with this one, it's just $800, 800 US bucks just for this one lens. So you're kind of in this tough situation of choice. Which one should you get? Now, what I would do if you have the 6500, for example, I would get the obviously you have the 6500. I would get the Tamron here, and I would potentially either get the Sigma 16 or the Sigma 30. I think the Sigma 16mm would be a better choice because that 16mm converts to about 24mm, which you're kind of losing on this particular lens. So the 16 Sigma is going to cover you on that really wide end, and this will cover you for most of the rest of your shooting that you need. And you're all set to go. And that still would be, a fairly light combination to carry with you. You got two lenses kind of covering your ranges. That's my recommendation at that point. Another thing we're going to look at is what if you're looking at upgrading to full frame, or you already own a full frame camera, for example. Then the Tamron 20-75 makes the most sense to look at and to potentially consider. So if you're looking to upgrade, you obviously can't upgrade with 16-70. You're going to be forced to sell this lens. So the Tamron 20-75 is a good middle ground lens to pick up, especially since it's already meant for full frame. So if you know you're ready to upgrade soon, maybe within the next few months, and if you can get your hands on the Tamron 20-75, for example, then get the Tamron 20-75. It makes the most sense, especially, again, if you have full frame. It'll pair up really well with it. And then, like I said earlier, I think it's one of those lenses that will just stick with your full frame camera for the most part. Another thing I was looking at, I was doing some tests, and I'll just kind of share with you a little bit about what I saw, is that can you use the Tamron 20-75 to replace prime lenses. So the 3 prime lenses that I'm looking at as far as replacements are going to be these 3 lenses. I've got a 35 1.8 OS. These 2 are for APS-C, the 50mm f1.8 optical steady shot, and then also the 85 1.8. Now, when you compare these all in terms of price, this is like $350 for the 35. This goes for like $250, and then this one's like $600. So we're looking at about $1,200 for these 3 prime lenses. And then, the question we're asking ourselves, can you replace those 3 prime lenses, for example, with just this one Tamron lens for APS-C? I think you could. The 85, 75, they're pretty close already. 75, 85, it's about a 10mm difference. Step in maybe, just a little bit more to kind of get the same effective reach and between those two, between that situation that you're in. But when I was doing some general testing, when I was shooting a wide open with the 35 and the 50, I found that comparing it, so it's not fair. This doesn't go to 1.8. But when I looked at 2.8 on this lens, and I compared the 1.8 on the 35 and the 50, they were fairly soft in the center. So obviously, if you stop down these 2 lenses to f2.8, they get a little more comparable. Even at f2.8, I still noticed that the Tamron was still a hair sharper than the prime lenses. I would say that once you stop down to about f4 to f5.6, the peripheral sharpness is roughly the same with the prime lenses, the 35 and the 50, with the Tamron. I will still give the corner sharpness from my test to the prime lenses. If this corner sharpness is very important to you, I would still give it more towards the prime lenses. But in terms of just peripheral area on the lenses, by 5.6, they're all kind of around the same performance. There's always lens variations. This is just my own testing, right? So with the 85 1.8, obviously I really like 85 1.8s for prime shooting, but the 75 is going to be a little nicer because honestly, if you're going to shoot portraits with APS-C, the 75 is not going to force you to back up too far. It might actually be kind of that zone of that 50 to 75 that's going to be really nice for shooting portraits. I think this might be a really good combination in that regards instead of getting the 85 if you're an APS-C shooter. So just in general, if you're looking at it, I would probably consider the Tamron over these 3 prime lenses if I was going to choose. I know it's kind of weird, but if I only had a very tight budget, it's only going to cost me $800. I would just go ahead and just get the Tamron 20-75 and just pass these 3 prime lenses altogether. Now, with the savings I've got, I'll save about $400. Again, that's enough money to throw in a Sigma 16mm for that really wide end if you ever need that fast wide end lens. So I think that's gonna do it for me for this particular video. Let me know in the comments below if you are an APS-C shooter looking to get to Tamron 20-75. I am gonna try and do some shooting tests with it. I've already been doing that with the combinations already. But I'd love to know if you are in that situation. Are you looking to upgrade soon and you're looking at the Tamron 20-75? What's your situation? Would love to know in the comments below. Well, that's going to do it for me in this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification to stay up to date with my latest content. And with that said, I'm your host, That One Camera Guy, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.